Hello and welcome to this week's episodes of The Calling. Follow your spirit all the way in. I'm your host, Homaya. Join me in this journey of self-awareness, soul frequencies, and spiritual revelations. Let's fly. Welcome, beautiful people, gorgeous soul. I am so happy and elated for your presence in this episode of the Calling podcast. I am with a dear colleague, a dear friend, a very inspiring, impactful woman with potent light, Corrina Stewart. Welcome, dear.
Thank you, Homaya. I'm so grateful to be here. I will say I wanted to say elated. I think that's a new word. Elated to be
Oh my
here.
God.
It just came through.
It's crazy because most of the time I'm using this word saying, oh, I'm so elated to be here. And here you are channeling already before even I introduce you. So I'd like to say a few words to introduce you to the audience. And I'm so happy for those who are listening because being in the presence of Corrina is like you're being injected with such a beautiful and potent light. I mean, like, even now that you're tuning into the episode, tune in what you really want to do with your heart and soul. Because even if we're going to speak about Corrina, I want to bring her spirit, I want to bring her light, I want to bring her message and mission. But you will feel that it is touching you. You will feel your blood activated as light. And this is so inspiring. This is what it means for me to be with you, to listen to you, to converse with you. There's such a beautiful clarity that comes in so much depth, exactly like you could quote me without even knowing that you're quoting me. This is so beautiful.
Right. That's amazing.
It's amazing. And we were chatting a little bit, like, how can we introduce a woman like you that, also in this free world, in a state of life where we are so much in our sovereignty, so much in our freedom, and it is so challenging to be under a title.
Mhm.
How can we title what we do, how we do? And then you gave me this, suddenly it came this super inspiring title, which I know that you've used, right? You quoted it because you've used it, right? I'm gonna try to quote you.
Okay.
A former 7-figure entrepreneur, global cosmic light awakener.
Yes. Yes.
What
Thank you,
to do?
Homaya. Yeah, that's as you said, like the work that you and I do in this world. It's we're here for this finite time and we're aware of that. We're aware we're here for that and that we dropped into this time space dimension of earth that we call earth to bring light and to be light and to try to define what that is has been a lifelong project. So I often tell it more in story to help understand myself and to describe to others what it is that I am. So, these days I've really made this shift. I spent 8 years being a soul wealth coach and being in the space of helping spiritually aligned entrepreneurs to grow business and activate wealth and really bring a wealth consciousness into a community that has been so entrenched in a poverty consciousness, a scarcity consciousness. And that was wonderful work, epic work, beautiful work. And I helped so many, including, myself, really to have that breakthrough in creating multiple millions in that time and to show that it was possible to be someone like myself, to be someone like you and be saturated in beautiful abundance and to receive, from the light and demonstrate this. And where I am today, it's not that doesn't matter to me now. It does. It's more the next cycle. It's okay. Once it's like the alchemist, right? Once you can transform metal into gold. Okay, now what? Right? And this is your podcast. It's the calling. Like, what's the calling now? And
Oh,
for
I love
me,
that.
it's very, very clear to me. My calling has always been the cosmic. It has always been to bring the cosmic light codes and the cosmic frequency and the really the wisdom that is of the stars, that is of these higher light dimensions to Earth, because Earth is graduating, right? We're graduating into a new embodiment, a new cycle, to also remember that we're cosmic citizens. So that's where I am today, is to really stand in that cosmic truth.
So strong, so beautiful, Corrina. I really enjoyed listening to this, even this tiny little transmission. And I love that the definition that is saying, okay, that is already embodied. Whatever it is, that is already embodied, and giving ourselves the permission to have no title so we can infinitely expand into the infinite.
Yeah.
It is so liberating, because I know that could be that there are people who are listening now that have some spiritual experiences or have learned even some methodologies or some techniques. And it could be that they're in the beginning of the spiritual journey and they're asking themselves, but how can we explain? It is legit not to have words for that. You are explaining it in your presence. You are explaining it in your moves. You're explaining it in the way that you show up to places.
Yeah, that's it. It's presence. I mean, you speak about this all the time. You embody this. This is your work. And, you know, I remember the first time I understood presence. I think there's actually a book called Presencing. Yeah, I know. Really long time ago, became aware of this book. It comes out of the emotional intelligence space, not so much the spiritual, but, you know, when we're in presence, we're in the divine intelligence. And that's ultimately what I feel my calling is. And that's the cosmic consciousness. We can call it the logos, right? That cosmic logos that's downloading into us and downloading into the planet, is to be in that intelligence, which is a living light system. And as we connect into it, and as I've experimented with this part of my journey, it is to be in this light system, a crystalline light system that is really just emerging here, but it is incredibly advanced in the cosmic sphere.
Corrina, I want us to witness your awakening. Would you be willing to share that with us? You felt the appropriate frequency ring?
Yeah. Yes, it's a story I love to revisit. So my awakening, it first began slightly in 2007. That's when I started to become aware, oh, my life in reality isn't what I thought it was. And that's a bit more of a classic awakening, in the sense that I was working in a career and, you know, had my job, and I was laid off. And then I was having an existential crisis going, who am I? What am I to do? And this helped me find things like yoga and meditation. And that was the beginning of it, where I began to get downloads. But let's flash forward to from 2007 to now. We're going, I got to get the dates right, 2016. So pretty big gap there. But from 2007 to 2016, I was a student. I was a student, meaning I just soaked up all the information that I was receiving from my higher self and my future self, informing me about, you know, this is your calling. This is what you're here to do. This is what you will do. And one of the things that I was shown is I would have 2 children. You know, 2007, I was a year into, no, not a year. Gosh, I lose track of time. You know, you get to our age, I forget. I didn't get married till 2009. So I think I was engaged then. Anyway, no children in sight at this point. 2014, I'm married. We have our first child, a daughter, Leanna. And then I get pregnant before she even turns 1 year old. Like, oh no, we're thinking this can't be, we're not ready. And this beautiful soul, Emmanuel is his name, which is so incredible. He gave us that name when he was in my womb. The I am, I am. And he was conceived on the night before Easter, and his due date was Christmas. What are the chances? It's just so precise. But what I didn't know was that his coming into the world was really going to essentially kick me out of the womb too. I'd been incubating for a long time, many, many years, incubating and waiting to really be seen in the light and to step into the fullness of my light. So, Christmas came and went. He did not come. And then we were getting well into January. Still, he had not come. And I started to get a little nervous, as were all of my whole birthing team around me was quite nervous, because with my daughter, I'd had an emergency C-section. And, I wanted to do a natural birth with my son. And so I was seen as a risk because I'd already had, surgery to my womb, and here I want to give birth. And anyhow, there was a little pressure around me, but I was really holding the space for my son as a soul to come in as he chose. And it was coming on, it was actually January 11th. It was a Monday. And I, being intuitive as I am, I really pay attention to energy and nudges and messages. And I got this feeling of fear come over me. I remember right where I was with my husband and my daughter, and we were in a botanical garden, just passing time as you do when you're waiting for a child to be born. Like, what should we do today? Oh, let's go to the botanical garden and walk around, and maybe this will make something happen. Anyway, this fear came over me, Hamaya, and it scared me. It was like a mama fear, this like mama bear, like, oh gosh, something is not right. And I felt an urgency come across me, like this child needs to be born. But nothing was going on. I had some contractions, but no dilation. And I was doing many things to get things going, but nothing was making it happen. So I wrote to a friend at that moment who's also very intuitive. And I said, I'm kind of like, well, I'm feeling fear. I feel that there's something that's tapping me, that's trying to tell me like I need to pay attention. And she messaged me back. We were texting, and she said, I get that you need to have this child by Wednesday. Imagine, it's 48 hours away. I'm going, okay, so you're getting a message. I'm feeling this urgency. Okay, I have a 48-hour window to make some decisions here. And long story short on that, because we want to get to the awakening piece. I end up, well, all of this is awakening. Yeah. I end up going in for a planned C-section. I was at peace with it. It was a Wednesday morning. I was at peace with it. Okay, it's time. And I listen. And this is one of the things, believe me, I wanted my ideal birth with both my children. I wanted the water birth. I wanted all the things. And, I felt very prepared for that. And what I've learned in having children is they have their own plan. And there's a way they need to come in and to honor that and to not make it about me, So for both my children, it was very humbling the ways that they came through. But yeah, so it was a fine C-section. There was nothing that went wrong that we could have seen. Nursed my son all night long. The next morning, of course, I'm tired. I've been up all night. And I start to feel weak. I start to feel just a weakness and a little faint, little like I couldn't breathe deeply. So I get some food, get some fluids, thinking I must just be tired. I need nourishment. I need hydration. But it's still, nothing changes. And I feel myself getting weaker. And so then they draw some blood, and they see that my hemoglobin has significantly dropped, like down to really scary levels. And before I know it, there's all these people rushing in. I'm hooked into, blood pressure machine. I'm watching the meter drop. My blood pressure is just dropping. And I start telling myself, if you've ever been in a position where you're not sure what's going on, or you just panic, like I start telling myself, stay conscious, because I could feel I could barely breathe. And they put an oxygen mask on me. And I closed my eyes. I'm trying to preserve my energy. I'm trying to breathe. Like, I'm telling myself to stay conscious because I was afraid to go out. I was like, my personality type has got some controller in there. So I'm trying to control, right? Breathe, stay alive, don't go out. No. I'm not surrendered. Okay. This is not pretty, guys. And when you're in primal fear, I'm like, I'm fighting, which is a good thing too. I'm fighting. I'm saying, breathe, stay here. I have a moment, the last time that I could be conscious enough, I text my intuitive friend that I had texted before, and then one other, and my message just said, help, I'm dying. That's it. Help, I'm dying. They were the only two people I knew at that time who I knew if anyone could save my life, that they could. They're energy workers, healers. And I just called them in. Help me. I'm dying. So a lot goes on from this moment on, from blood transfusions to rushed into surgery. A lot going on there. What I can tell you on the spiritual level is here's what happened. The irony is this, the surgeon who I ended up having to do the surgery, because they said, well, you're bleeding. I wasn't bleeding out, but they knew I was bleeding because my hemoglobin went down, but they didn't know why I was bleeding. They said, we need to do surgery. We need to find out what's going on and basically deal with the internal bleeding. The surgeon was this OB who I had this very intense conversation with about a week before all of this. And I had been upset with her because she was really trying to push me to go do an induction, like right then and there. And I felt very bullied. And now I'm realizing that it's this woman who's going to do my surgery. Wow. And I knew right then and there I had to forgive her. That she was this, not only her as a person, but it was like I needed to shift into that frequency. It was so intense. Wow, this woman who represented for me this other paradigm, who didn't want to honor the soul. That's how I viewed her. She was pushing me to bypass the soul's desire in my son and our agreement. And I needed to forgive her. And I also saw her as representing science, right? And I'm the metaphysical science. I come from this other space, the new world, the new paradigm. And it was like, here we were clashing in that meeting. And here she could save my life. So I knew I must forgive her now. And it was then that I left the body. And I ended up in what I consider to be the heart of the universe, cosmic heart. It was in the center of it, God's heart. And I could just hear pulsation. Many people who have had near-death experience talk about this. It's the Om. It's this. It's so big, the pulsation and the sound, and it was coming through me. And I could see it too. It looks like the human heart in its pulsation and even in the anatomy. But it's waves. It's such big, ginormous waves of vibration. And I saw my husband raising our children alone. This parallel reality. And I felt his grief. I felt such grief in him, sadness. And in that state of love that I was in, I was at peace with it. I accepted it. It was very interesting. I really, truly did. I truly accepted. I said it, but it's okay. Because all is love. I could hover and witness that reality unfolding and be in completely held in God's love. Whew. And it was like in that moment, I can humanize this and say, well, maybe that was the moment that I chose differently. I don't know. All I know is that because I deeply accepted, it was this surrendering of my whole life. I truly surrendered all in that moment. God's way, God's will. There was no thought. It was just, it is. At some point, there was an angel, and I recognized her. She was someone who I vaguely knew in high school, but years later, in my adult life, I heard she died in childbirth. And I remember just feeling that so tragically. It was her first child, newly married. And I remember learning about that. It really upset me. And it was her as an angel. And I knew, okay, I knew it was, well, she's here to help me pass through. And I don't know why I said this to her, but I did. It was this strong, powerful message. I said, you don't need to help me die. I am sovereign and I know how to die. That's what I said to her. Such an odd message, I feel, but yet powerful. I basically sent her away. I said, no, I'm good. I'm a sovereign being. I know how to die. I don't need an angel to help me die. And she vanished. She went away. And sure, it was, there was a power. I was standing in this power of my being. I accept God's way and I know who I am. I am sovereign. None of this, angels helping me pass. And the next thing I remember, I'm waking up from surgery. My husband's over me. The surgeon who, I had forgiven is hovering over me, telling me everything went well, telling me all the things they looked at, what they did, the procedures, that they found a lot of blood clots outside my womb and they cleared that out so that I wouldn't feel any pain in my abdomen. And yet they could not find any rupture, any source of the bleeding. She even said, well, the good news is you're fine. Your uterus is fine. Your bladder is fine. There's nothing torn. There's nothing that we could find. And the bad news is we don't know why this happened. There's no source.
The good news, actually.
Yeah. And so following that, I lived through several months of what I call grace. It really was grace. So much light, so much healing. Here I had gone through 2 surgeries in 24 hours and I healed fast. I mean, I think I was walking within 3 days, after being, cut into my, right into my uterus, and I was fine. I felt so much deep peace. I had this beautiful sisterhood of women that came to help me, feed me, take care of me. And they were having dreams. They were like, I don't know what's going on, but there's this light field. I feel it around you. And they were healing things. They were dreaming and healing in this light. And it took about, I don't know, maybe about a month afterwards that I had this quiet moment with my son, with me, obviously, my daughter, who at this point is just 1.5. And I was alone. It was one of the first times I was alone because, all the help had kind of dissipated and my husband was back to work. And I felt sad. I felt this, wow, well, this ginormous experience has happened for me. Huge. What was it for? I kind of had one of those moments where I was like, okay, God, but why did you take me through yet another intense life experience where I feel I was on the edge, right? Because this had been my experience for almost a decade. And I'd really been in a space of incubation with a lot of poverty, not having resource and trying to figure out how to put my purpose together. So I was kind of in a, oh, woe is me moment. And then something hit me where I just said, okay, God, it was like that fire. And I just said, God, As I sit here with my 2 children, I decide now that this isn't it. I love my children, but I know this isn't it for me. To be the mom that's just raising the kids, like I have so much more in me. That I have more. And I say, God, whatever it is that I am to do, I say yes. You open the door, I will say yes. And this became my year of yes. That was the commitment I made. Every single door you open for me, I will be a yes, whether I understand it or don't. And it was within days of that commitment that, again, was just to myself. I told no one about it in that moment. No one knew. It was this inner decision.
You're the only one. There's
It's the only
was
one.
no one to say to.
No. Yeah, just me.
Within days.
And days after that, Homaya, I ended up on a phone call with a coach who worked for a coach who later became my business coach for 5 years. I knew nothing about business. I knew nothing about how to create a business. I had a message. I had wisdom to share. But I didn't have the structure. I didn't have the system. And within a year and a half of working with that coach, I'd created $1 million in 1 year. And that was the yes, and that continued. I said, okay, I get it, God. Like, because I would have rejected her previously because she was like nothing like me. I looked at her and thought, oh, you're so like opposite of me. I couldn't possibly work with you. But because I'd gone through that experience and I made my commitment to God and to myself that I would be a yes. And that's how things unfolded.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Sometimes when you hear such a powerful song, you just need to see it in silence, in the receivership of it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that this song is a song of true choice.
Yeah.
And it's not like the feeling of choice and the respect of the free will. It was one of the first things I started hearing when you started mentioning first his name. I felt, oh wow, I feel the presence of the teaching, or the deep teaching of free will as an act of liberation and a reconciliation with the divine within us, like really surrendering the ego and aligning the will with the divine will. And as I kept listening to your story, to this life experience, I kept on feeling this frequency of the highest choice, the purest choice. And although you were mentioning in between, you were mentioning this moment of episode where you were not surrendering, or a moment of episode where you had this clash of interest, we can even say, and still the presence of the free will in its highest form is so much there. I feel inspired to share some words about free will.
I mean, I've never heard, no one has ever had that interpretation, and it's very, yeah, I love that. I love that.
What it is more,
clarity.
What it is more when you are at the presence of the divine and saying, I'm coming to you by myself as I am, I'm coming to you, saying to this angel who's supposed to escort you as you are ascending and saying, I am coming, I am as I am, fully already here. I felt at that moment that you're saying, you're declaring that there's no separation between you and the divinity.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I felt when you were saying, I govern, I don't need to be escort.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the top of the feeling of a free will. because we've received free will as we received several things as human to, I would say, feel the presence of divinity within us.
Right.
There are several things where God is still awakened within us and will always be awakened within us as long as those aspects are awakened in our life, which is the size of our heart, and in that sense, the size of the love that we can have beyond good or bad, beyond clashing with that, woman or surrendering to it. It doesn't matter. It's this feeling of the heart is alive, and this is love. It's not a circumstances, right? It's not this kissing or hugging and so on. It's like you were already yes. Before yes, you just realized the yes, but you were already yes in heart before.
Yes.
Love is part of it. And the other thing that I feel that really represents the presence of God within us is the free will, which we can either get lost in this, whether you call it enigma or illusion or hallucination, whatever you would like to name this reality, this 3D experience. So yeah, you can have the free will. You can want you could want whatever you want. You can want everything, like like a child in the candy shop. You can have everything. You can want everything. Nothing will stop this wish, this desire. Nothing going to stop it. This is actually an inner engine that makes this 3D still working and still self-perpetuating itself. This is part of the fuel that nourished the 3D experience, right? But then the ascension process is, although I can have everything, I want one.
Yes. I keep seeing the lion. I keep seeing the lion as you speak, right? It's like that's the lion. Courage, the heart, the fierceness.
Yeah.
And it's like that's the human experience, because here we are in this 3D world that can feel like a jungle, right? And to stand in that and say, here I am.
Yeah. And then you can have whatever story in front of you. It can be whatever story in front of you. You've made your choice. You've made your choice to say yes to this life, to be in this life. Yeah, you already made the choice. The choice is this alignment. I'm not going to go into the illusion of this world. And that was such a strong moment where this is full ownership. This is the real sovereignty.
Yeah.
This is so powerful. I also want to share with you something super personal from this morning all day long. I almost wrote a post about it. Maybe I will. Which is, I'm saying yes. I keep on feeling this, like yes to life, 100%. I felt that so strong. And I'm sharing it with you, and I'm sharing it also with those who are listening, to understand the infinite field of connectivity that we're part of.
Yeah.
We're recording it now. At a certain moment in time, it's going to air in another moment in time. And in another moment in time, you, the one who's listening now, you would listen to it. And then you will see the ripple effect of it beyond time and space in your life.
Yeah. That's it. And that's the infinite thread.
The ripple effect can only happen from the source of truth, from the source of love, from the source of freedom. A ripple effect cannot be to a lie, to complexity, to manipulation. That doesn't have any ripples. There's no ripple to false energy. Only truth can have such a strong ripples beyond time and space. Only this divine presence that you were mentioning, being at the heart of God, that has such a strong ripple effect that you can be healed in such a quick, fast time. You can accelerate in your business, in your presence, in your voice, probably in the way that you walk, in your conversation with your husband, in your motherhood. Like everything can because only that can have a ripple.
That's right. I mean, I'm thinking here I was, right, to speak to others who are sitting in a place of, I want to know, You know, what is my calling? How do I step in? Right. That was my inner conflict I was having at that time. And so what was delivered to me was this experience to walk through so that I would without a doubt know, right, that the calling was now and that I was choosing it, but also again to weave that through time and space. Because here I am so many years later, still telling the story. Here's the purpose. Here's the calling. Tell the story. Send the ripple. That's it.
Such a beautiful, wow. I was so curious to hear the story. I was so curious because of course I feel the ripple effect of the story every time I meet you, every time I hear you, every time I see you. I feel that you're so still anchored in that place of truth. It is, you can see from where a person, sometimes people are asking me, but how do you know that this person is awakened? How do you know that this person is indeed in freedom? How do you know? How do you know? You listen from where the person is speaking. You look and you see from where the person is looking.
Right. Yeah. And I was going to say that to you, Amaya, is that from that moment on, when I hear this a lot, people will say, well, how do you know, Corrina, from the outside, I know sometimes it can look like I'm fearless because I've since then done so many things that, you know, from the outside look risky. And the reason I can is because I'm rooted in that. You know, when you go to that edge and it's never left me, there really isn't any fear in me. I can experience fear, but I know the experience of moving through that deepest of fear, which is the other side of this reality. And to then have come back and it's not like it this gets into some of the energetics, right? But it literally does stay with you. So like I'm tethered still to that space. Yeah. And that's the bridge, right? Yeah.
It's so important to bring it because people can go through a similar experience without having a similar experience.
Right.
So the circumstances can happen to so many people, but not necessarily there will be the energetic charge that comes with it, right?
Yeah.
And then the other way around is also very important to bring it. You don't need to go to the edge.
Right.
You don't need to go to the edge. Because if you listen even to the story in terms of circumstances could have been a story.
Yeah.
Right? It could also be a story in that circumstances without the meeting, without the presence, without the act of forgiveness, without the movement of sovereignty, of ownership, like without this presence of yours, your connection to yourself, it wouldn't be an edge.
Right.
It was an edge because you were in your truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You needed to be with your truth in front, even I would say in front of this woman before. You needed to be in your truth, saying, no, I'm not going to do that surgery like that. You were on the
trigger, right? It's like, stand right there, confront this, right? And that's my way. It has continued to be my way.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of that courage, that lion, both heart, courage, passion, but also the fierceness. And that's something that I'm here to be. Right? I'm here to be the fire of that I am and the water of it. And it's not everyone's way of doing it, but for me it is. And it allows me to constantly, you know, we started this conversation with, I'm yet now again I let a whole thing die and I've stepped into another. And that was by going to an edge. It wasn't because I thought of it. It wasn't because I said, well, I think I'll come up with a new identity or a new strategy for my business. No, I was taken to the edge of it. And told to collapse it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I put the calling that this is the edge. This is what I want people to tune into, to open themselves up to. Because they can have a conversation with someone without understanding that this conversation is the edge.
Right.
They can go into a surgery without thinking that this surgery is the edge. They can wake up in the morning, brush their teeth without thinking that this is the edge. But they can bring their presence to this moment that they brush the teeth. And that would be the edge.
And
they
that's
can
the
bring
edge.
themselves into the listening of this conversation. And that will be the edge.
That's right. That's right. Life is exhilarating. What was the word I said? In the beginning with the I don't remember it now, that word that downloaded. Not enlightening, but it was delightening. I don't even remember. Anyway, but that's the edge. Yeah.
Yeah. So beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope that they would not get enough from you, that they will feel you and read you and see you and smell you and whatever. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for this beautiful, powerful transmission, for everything you went through, for everything you are going through, and for the way you do it.
Thank you, Amaya. Thank you for wanting to know the story, wanting to pull it forward for others. I really appreciate you feeling that and the invitation to share it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening and being part of this great conversation. You will find all the relevant links in the show notes, as well as a link to a meditation for you to feel more connected to your spirit and aligned with your soul contract. Please, if this episode touched you, leave a review, like, and subscribe. Feel comfortable to share it with your friends, family, and colleagues, because everyone has a calling.